Welcome to the newspaper review. We get into the most topical matters that the papers are carrying this morning. Let's start with the Daily Graphic and newspaper. And Minerals Fund must provide economic livelihood for mining communities. That's the Chamber of Mines CEO. 2021-2022 school placement out. Free TVET takes off. Now, this is interesting. In my interaction this morning with Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, he will be talking about this all-important matter, TVET, and how we have failed on a technical level, technical and vocational level, to sort of pivot our country or leverage on that to develop the country. Let me go to some details of that, pick some details of that on page 14 of the newspaper. And let's just get to page 14. There you are. So the Ministry of Education has announced that the free technical and vocational education and training initiative introduced by the government has been operationalized this academic year. Consequently, all qualified basic education certificate examination candidates who choose to pursue TVET at any government-approved senior high school, senior high technical school, or any TVET institution will enjoy all the benefits of the free SHS initiative. So that is the point there. And a very welcome one. But another point to be made is 65 years on, what exactly have we done with technical vocational training? You look at the fact that GSTS, the Ghana Secondary Technical School, which, I mean, was founded even before the likes of St. Augustine's and Infantipim and all of that. It had been there purposely for this. It had world-class equipment at the time. Yet, look at it today. And no country has developed without building its human resource via education, and especially from the standpoint of technical and vocational education. That is the middle level. That is the developmental level. Not everyone becomes a medical doctor or a lawyer and all of that. These are the ones who, with their technical and vocational skills, like we see in Egypt, they make a country. We're failed in that respect. And no wonder, little wonder, we are where we find ourselves on the scale of development. So that is why it is crucial. But there is a move to revamp the sector, and hopefully this move leads to some crucial changes in our educational system. 28th COVID-19 update. Ghana opens borders. Face masks no longer mandatory. But the warning has been given. Last night I was here interacting with Dr. Bayuo, General Secretary of the GMA, and Dr. Anaba as well. Both of them concur on this bit. Don your mask for your own safety. Yes, Mr. President has said it is not mandatory. But if wherever you find yourself, if you feel that this space, I need to, cover up and all of that, do that for your own safety. But here are some details. The country's land and sea borders have been opened from today, 2 years after COVID-19 travel restrictions were imposed. Besides, the wearing of face masks is no longer mandatory. These were the major highlights of President Akufo-Addo's 28th update on Ghana's enhanced response to the COVID-19 pandemic, delivered last night, in case you missed it. According to the president, fully vaccinated travelers would be allowed entry through the land and sea borders without a negative PCR test result from the country of origin. He noted that Ghana had reached a critical point in its fight against COVID-19, and government had to undertake a comprehensive review of the raft of measures put in place to help win the fight against the virus. Now, there have been calls from various aspects of our economic endeavor, from hotels to other business people, saying that we are bleeding financially. And finally, it appears this has it has reached the ears of the powers that be. But how are we going to do this with the necessary caution to ensure that we don't expose ourselves to more waves of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also ensure, when Mr. President says, when there are mass gatherings, ensure that you are checking the vaccination status of people. We know that there are fake vaccination cards. We know that. It's not to be contested. People pay and get them, unfortunately. We also know that not everyone has been vaccinated. And how practical is it, really? Expecting that people will, let's say, go to the stadium and everyone will bear a vaccination card. Maybe in that instance it can be controlled. But how about at a rally, another thing that now we're open to. So some dynamics to consider, but all in all, we'll get the reactions of business people as well who are calling for this and see how happy they are with the development. In other stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper, ECOWAS hints of tough action against Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. And the Economic Community of West African States has, at its extraordinary summit on the situations in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso, called on the juntas in the three countries to quickly return to constitutional pathways. The regional bloc said that it would lead to peace and stability as well as socio-economic development. It remains to be seen whether these three countries will comply. There's also World Meteorological Day 2022, which was established on March 23rd, 1950. This year's theme for the WMD, early warning and early action. Why am I touching on this? Well, the dynamics in our part of the world, tropical area, and with all the dynamics of global warming, we have quite a bit to digest. Our weather patterns have been changing radically or drastically. Question is, are we preparing for what is coming? Temperatures are changing. We are suffering the brunt here. It's going to affect even farmers in terms of when it rains, in terms of the heat on their plants and all of that. How are we preparing ourselves as a country? That is another conversation. On page 9, Israel hosting historic six-way U.S.-Arab meeting. You can check out details of that. Le Pen heckled by protesters. That's in France. And on the back page of the paper, Princesses book under 20 Women's World Cup ticket. We're often talking about the men, but the women have done us really proud for many years. Now, Ghana's under 20 female football team, Black Princesses, have picked a ticket for one of Africa's 2 slots at the 16-nation FIFA Women's World Cup scheduled for Costa Rica in August. The Princesses qualified by spanking, and it was indeed a spanking, Ethiopia by 5-1 on aggregate in their final round qualifying tie. So while we try to book a spot for the Black Stars of Ghana, well, the Princesses are in a comfortable lead. Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. 2021 school placement. Government rolls out free TVET this year. Already a story we've digested in the Daily Graphic newspaper. 4 young Ghanaian business leaders grab awards at 40 Under 40 Africa Awards. Story on page 15. Let's celebrate our own when they achieve feats, shall we? So let's quickly get to that page. Let's see who and who made the cut. Now, 4 young Ghanaian business leaders were over the weekend awarded for their remarkable contributions to socio-economic growth of the African continent. They include Ronald Tego, my sincere apologies, Ronald Tego, science and technology entrepreneur. Nelson Madiba Amo received the People's Choice Award. Kofi Amoa Aban, oil and gas entrepreneur, and Bernard Kofi Bonaparte for his contributions to social entrepreneurship. They received the awards at the 40 Under 40 Africa Awards event held in Accra, aimed at celebrating the achievements of young entrepreneurs. Let's get into some other stories now. And 10 charged over violent clashes at Bonsaso. And the 10 suspects who were arrested after violent clashes at Bonsaso in the Takwa and Swayim municipality of the Western region appeared before the Takwa Magistrate Court B on Friday and were remanded into police custody. They were charged with murder, causing harm, and possessing firearms, and they are to reappear on May the 4th, 2022. You can't take the law into your own hands, and the long arms of the law will reach you, and when it does, well, you'll get what's coming to you. A 52-year-old alleged murderer granted bail. You would know the cases in the past about bailable and non-bailable offenses, and a landmark case that changed the situation in terms of non-bailable offenses. If you followed the situation to do with Oliver Mause Bakavomao, you would understand what I am pointing to. But in this instance, a 52-year-old farmer, Kwabena Ampoma, who allegedly murdered his cousin, Madam Adwa Bedu, aged 63, was on Thursday granted 100,000 Ghana cedi bail with 2 sureties to be justified by the Sunyani High Court at 2. There's also Carpenter, 48, jailed 20 years for defilement. On page 12, Eastern Regional NPP Youth Organizer suspended for unfounded allegations against President and National Chairman. I'm talking about Mr. Ado, Eastern Regional. So pictured there is Mr. Ado, Eastern Regional Secretary of the NPP, but this has to do with the youth organizer, Kwejo Osu Efriye. In other stories, there's also stars will shine over Super Eagles. That's according to Coach Otto Ado. What do you think? A bit of a good performance on the 25th, that is Tuesday, from the Black Stars. They actually shone for a bit. They commanded the midfield. Of course, Nigeria was missing the potent efforts of Ndidi. But as we go to Abuja, the Abuja crowd is not as ferocious. You see what we saw in Kumasi, that is what you get in Kumasi. But the Abuja crowd is not as ferocious and as intimidating as the Lagos crowd. A bit posh, if you like. But what is going to be the impact? And is Thomas Partey, the sitting captain, going to come good this time? He didn't have a good first encounter. Are we going to qualify? You can share your thoughts with us with the hashtag AMShow. Let's get into the Finder newspaper now. President lifts COVID-19 restrictions. We've already been talking about that. Dr. Kwame Boateng makes compelling case for financing renewable energy projects. There's also free SHS, 367,811 get placement, 187,542 to do self-placement. That's according to the Education Ministry. There's also Sino-Hydro roads on display as Dr. Baumia cuts short 4 additional 100 kilometers. And Apiate Reconstruction, Lands Minister opens bid for contractors. One thing I am looking forward to, and I'm being very open and very blunt about it, is for His Excellency, the Vice President, to speak about the economy. He's been deafeningly silent. And we've been told that in the days to come, he's going to be talking about the economy early April. I look forward to that. Not for any diabolical reasons, like, of course, in this country, we are so polarized that we feel if you are here, then it means, or you're suggesting something, it means you must be in this place. You can be in the middle, but the point is, I would like to find out, as head of the economic management team, what he thinks about our economy, honestly. What he hopes can be done about the economy to bring it out of where we are. Take, for example, the recent measures announced by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on the back of soaring, skyrocketing fuel prices, an increase of about 5 cedis per litre within a space of months, and how much is taken off 15 pesos. The transport unions are threatening to up the ante in terms of their transport fares and all of that. So it would be interesting to find out from the Vice President what he has to say about our economy now and moving forward. But in other stories, do not overlook abortion-related deaths. That's according to the Ghana Health Service, which brings to mind some statistics from Texas as I was listening to it recently. A state in the United States that has a bit of a dichotomy when it comes to abortion rights and when you can do it. Of course, here in our country, the illegality of most of it also creates quite a picture. I, for one, as a Catholic and a very proud one, staunch one as well, I am not in for it. But then there are instances per the law where these are granted. And sometimes people just fall out of the bracket. Domahene announces establishment of Bonoman Development Fund. And there's also the bit about, let me go to this one, yeah? Our very own Samson Ladi Anyanene has a feature on page 7 of the Finder newspaper. Don't be disappointed, just get RTI working. You remember Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah said that he was disappointed that after all the efforts and everything to get us the right to information law, not too many people were getting in there. There were responses from the likes of ACE investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri Awene on the back of the fact that it is an arduous, tedious, tortuous process. Yeah, torturous to get information. You would recall that in recent times, we here at JoyNews tried to get information from the Health Ministry on Agenda 111. You saw what we went through. So it is what it is. And sometimes with entities asking you for huge sums of money, I don't know whether we are actually achieving the ends of the RTI law. But keep pushing, we shall. We shall. Till we get to that point where we're getting what we need. We must stand in the gap and get the right information for you, like we always do here with our fearless, credible, and independent journalism. More details from the Finder newspaper. And Apiata Reconstruction, Lands Minister opens bid for contractors. Most of the stories in other papers as well. Let's quickly get into some others. Let me go for the Daily Guide newspaper as well as the Daily Dispatch. Let's take it from there. Opari Ansan declares secretary bid. That story there. Party politics and COVID-19 wahala. Nana opens borders, no nose masks, testing at KIA. That is another crucial matter, the testing at KIA being taken off. And it's interesting because the Minority Caucus had threatened to picket at the KIA. And this has happened. We had heard from an aviation expert who had said that if we continued with especially with our testing and cost regime, we were likely to lose our status as Africa's preferred airport. Thankfully, this has been lifted, and I guess some people can rest easy when it comes to COVID-19. Not to mention that, regardless of what anyone would say, it was simply exorbitant what we were charging at the airport. It was a no-brainer, and some of the things that have happened, we're just happy that that has been lifted and people can rest easy. Dr. Kwame Boateng writes on renewable energy, free SHS TVET postings out, and don't touch our salaries, NDC MP says. A picture there, Agnes Na Mumu Lati. Page 3 has that story. Let's get into it. A member of the Minority Caucus in Parliament, Agnes Na Mumu Lati, is objecting to salary cuts for members of Parliament in the wake of measures by the government to trim spending amid the global economic crisis. According to her, the move would impinge on their pockets since NDC MPs, unlike their majority counterparts who obtain pecuniary benefits from their membership on boards of state corporations and agencies, have nothing other than their salaries. She goes on to say, last week, the government announced measures to save 50 million cedis, mainly through a public sector wage cut targeting its appointees to lower its deficit and address the current economic challenges facing the country. And it goes on and on. But in this instance, Na Lati is saying she would not accept, and in fact, she speaks here for the NDC MPs, the way she couched it, they would not accept any pay cut until the government stops its, quote, undue expenditure and accounts for funds it got in the name of COVID-19. I had here last week Al-Hassan Suini, Member of Parliament for Tamale North, and he said something around these same lines, that he might be willing to give up portions of his salary, but the majority side must come clean. They must be candid on some of these bits. The likes of Okujatua Blackwell have said, we can do same, but how do we know it will not end up in more chop-chop, according to the way they see it. In other stories, it's been a while. Let's talk about Ukraine. No Russia regime change plans. That's according to Blinken, Secretary of State for the United States, who has denied that the United States has any plans to bring about regime change in Russia or anywhere else. Mr. Blinken's comments come a day after President Joe Biden said his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, should not be allowed to remain in power. The West is now calling for Putin to be axed, to be removed. But that's I wouldn't say it's foolhardy, but I would say it's going to be a tough call, looking at the clout that Vladimir Putin has in his own country. But when you look at the other side, there are a lot of people who have surprisingly expressed their discontent with Putin, his general management of the country. While he has yawning wide support, there are some people who have gone to the point of even resigning from his administration, leaving the country. There are a lot of Russians on the back of this. They didn't have to. Thousands, tens of thousands of them who have left the country in protest. Media people have left. Businesses are suffering. Of course, Putin has tried some countermeasures. For example, something that I find very interesting in the international political setup. He is now calling for, and I don't know whether this will be pushed through, Western countries who now purchase oil, gas, and more from them to pay in rubles and not in American dollars. And that is going to be, the power play is going to be in there. But when you look at the core dynamics, in the long term, medium to long term, some of these economic shocks will have a very biting effect on the Russian economy. Is that something the Russian people are willing to stand by, all for Putin and his views? Only time will tell. There's also been talk about Ukraine suspecting that basically the Russians are not going to advance much further, but they are going to divide the country practically in two. And we're going to have a situation like we have in the Korean Peninsula, North Korea, South Korea. There's going to be one part of Ukraine, per what we hear, that is going to be under Russian control directly or by someone imposed there to administer the region. Again, only time will tell. Also something that we've been following in recent times, China confirms no survivors in plane crash. And officials have confirmed that all 132 passengers and crew died when flight MU5735 crashed on Monday in southern China. The China Eastern flight was flying from Kunming to Guangzhou when it nosedived and crashed in a heavily forested area in Guangxi. Our hearts go out to China and to all of these people who have lost their lives, their families, of course. TVET forcing strike at fiscal measures. And basically, they've been saying that this is much ado about nothing and that these measures will not achieve the desired effect. Arsenal plot Rashford capture. Marcus Rashford has not been himself this season, and Arsenal apparently is planning to swoop in and take him on. Go for AstroTurfs, a Black Ghana CEO tells clubs, and Kumasi went dead after Stars Super Eagles as stalemate. All of that in that paper. Let's check out some details from some other papers. The Daily Dispatch newspaper now. Let me just get that. So, Dufour meets Greater Accra executives. Next stop, Volta and Ashanti regions. And reflections on running mate selection in Ghana's Fourth Republic. You can check out the details on page 3. Local government minister Dan Boche impressed with Kumasi compost recycling plant. And Zipline has made over 4 million medical deliveries since 2019. That's according to Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. And it is interesting because he mentions at a point in time that his father passed sometime many years ago, and if Zipline, the drone delivery service, had been available, maybe his father would not have died. So a good initiative, definitely. Ghana's first female Major General, Constance Ama Emefa Ejiani Apenu, laid to rest. You would recall that she passed in recent months, and she's finally been laid to rest. 1.765 billion Agenda 111 project is government's commitment to improve health sector. And yesterday, the president spoke about this as he delivered the 28th COVID-19 address. Obed Asamoah on Ghana's Third Republic. He's been sharing his thoughts, and of course, he's been talking to me in recent times. Some of those details are still here in the Daily Dispatch newspaper. And you can also check out the full text of the press conference by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. That is also in the paper. Let's do the Herald newspaper, a paper that I've not done in a while, sometimes for specific reasons. But let's do it today. Papa Kwesi Ndum speaks from exile, trouble in NDC over missing 2.7 million Ghana cedis cash refunded by EC. Non-performing boss blamed for constant fuel price increments. And so boss Tankasa, should have work like that. Tortua, Bobo. In this country, it is interesting, isn't it? Practically nothing works. We do everything, but nothing works. We don't have the right systems. Look at our stadia. Look at the Baba Yara Sports Stadium the other day. And another bit about people using certain entrances to get in, forcing their way through. When are we going to get things right in this country? 65 years after independence. When we talk like this, it's not that we are naysayers, but it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how, under different regimes, we simply can't get some of the basics, mere basics, right. It makes one's heart bleed. Ex-law school director indicts Attorney General for not informing him about appeals court nomination. Maxwell Opoku there, and his picture in the paper. I'm talking about Maxwell Opoku Ajiman. That's the full name. The last one just escaped me. That's it with the Herald newspaper. Before I get to the Business and Financial Times and wrap, let's do Republic Press. Silver Star Auto begins selling locally assembled Peugeot vehicles in Ghana. Peugeot vehicles in Ghana. Ghana records 266,000 abortions in 4 years. And get rid of deputy CEO positions, as Stephen Amwa tells government. He made this call on Newsfile and very forcefully spoke about the fact that some of these positions must be scrapped. And there's also been talk about merging some ministries, because it makes no sense having them, all with different portfolios, all with different budgets. We can merge them, slash budgets, and all of that. But sometimes, like some people have suggested, else why would we have so many? Sometimes it's all about the chop, isn't it? I don't mince words. Why would we have so many ministries? You have countries, big countries, huge countries. Well, you can say they have systems, and they have smaller groups of ministers. Here, we have all the ministers, and yet, ECOWAS hard on coup makers, and that is a thought on some of the stipulations that ECOWAS has imposed on coup makers. And leaders of ECOWAS made the decision, some of these decisions, during an extraordinary summit. And President of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrou, said in view of the global political and security situation, there is an urgent need to reach an agreement in order to avoid further deterioration of the situation in Mali, for example. The BNFT now, reimposition of capital gains tax affecting equities market. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. Market responding favorably to recent monetary and fiscal measures. Already? It will be interesting to know just how. That's on page 2 of the paper. It's time to rethink development and utilization of renewable energy. Francis Ekwamwa-Boateng says a new expenditure cut measures, good signal for investors. Those are some economists speaking there. The very final one I will do is the Daily Statesman. Apiata reconstruction project takes off April ending. Borders open, face mask optional. President relaxes COVID-19 protocols. And there's Baumia Commission's Sino Hydro projects. There's also Caribbean tour. Prince William says future is for the people to decide. Reminds me of the situation with the Falkland Islands. But anyway, that's how we wrap the news review this morning. Hopefully you've got some insight into the biggest stories. But we have our big stories coming your way as we dilate on the 28th address by Mr. President, and also hear from an academic, statesman, a man of very deep thinking on myriad matters. Ghana at 65, STEM education, UTAG conditions of service, the economy, e-levy, 60 years of medical education. Look forward to that one. It's an interaction with former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ivan Adai Mensah. Up next, though, we have sports coming your way. Do stay.